feel like a sausage in a sausage casing in this vest. This week's Star Booty Challenge was a girl group disguised as a rusical. And I wasn't totally buying the story that they were selling. Before we get into this recap, there are two things that I said last week that I want to break down just a little bit. Hang tight with me for a moment. I called Drag Race a trash TV show. Now what I meant was that Drag Race is a trash reality TV show. Because I was hoping that as a higher evolved species, that we would be able to understand that I was clearly talking about the production and television side, not about the queen side, as a couple of comments mistakenly heard. I fully stand by what I said 10 toes down. I just probably should have been more careful with the phrasing. Mainline Drag Race, specifically the All-Stars seasons, are uninterested in real queer stories. If it was, they would have more conversations involved about HIV, safe sex, safe hookup culture, queer romances, acceptance within communities, political uprising, queer history. Well, the show has done that. A few small instances here and there across 17 seasons and 10 All-Stars where it gets a 5-minute spotlight every 7 episodes is not enough to negate the fact that Drag Race doesn't really care about those. The international seasons, such as Canada's Drag Race, Drag Race España, hell, even Drag Race Italia, has done and made efforts to latch on to things that are happening to real queer people. One of my favorite stories across all the franchises was Drag Sethless in España 2, talking about how she upset the church with a performance that she did, and the government had to step in order to intervene between what was happening with the anger that the church was feeling and with what she as a drag queen was doing. Those are real queer stories. These moments of drama and upset in the workroom are TV ploys and devices. And Drag Race enjoys, nay, loves, a villain feuding with the hero storyline. They love drama for drama's sake, and showing that being catty can oftentimes lead to short-term success, even if it doesn't always lead to long-term success. Think about how many times the show has had someone be kind of villainous or agitating in the workroom only to get a win that week, and we kind of saw that in this week's episode, and we saw that certainly in last week's episode. This comment that Drag Race is trash reality TV does not negate all the hard work that the queens in the room are doing, because they really are doing great work, and they do great work off the show. I think they're all highly talented, and I obviously don't think they're trash, otherwise I wouldn't keep watching this show. The show they participate in, however, is a machine, a well-oiled machine. And that machine is designed to keep you coming back. Whether that's to see if the mean queen loses, or if that underdog is able to beat the room critiques or the judges' critiques that they're bad at drag and win a challenge or stick around for another week. At this point, Drag Race is no different than Top Model was by this point in its existence, and I think most people will agree that Top Model was trash reality TV. It wasn't really about modeling, it was about the drama, it was about whatever Tyra was gonna say to the girls that made them cry that week. It was about whatever horrible thing Neil or Janice said in order to make these girls have an absolute mental breakdown. And we as the audience eat our popcorn and think, oh, that poor girl. Drag Race is very similar. It wants us to keep coming back for those very reasons. I was kind of gagged that it was misinterpreted as hard as it was, but it is what it is. The second thing I said is that Carrie is likely going to get some positive karma for what happened to her last week, probably also this week too. And going back to my previous comments, Drag Race is reality TV first, and I think a lot of people forget that when they're perceiving the show. I, as much as anybody else, want this show to be a real, genuine competition. I critique the show based off of how I think that it should be judged on who did well, but Drag Race is not interested in who did well, it's interested in who's got a story. Drag Race loves a hero story, but more than that, it loves an underdog story. And Drag Race loves a queen that was snubbed or maybe sniped early, had some type of slight done against them, they go home and then come back later. It's this redemption moment that they have been doing for years, all the way back to Carmen Carrera. See Trixie Mattel returning in season 7, someone who by a lot of the girls' opinions in the room, shouldn't have gone home. It should have been Pearl. Trixie comes back later in the competition, only to be a year later loved by the camera and the audience. So it felt like Drag Race was listening to us, that they saw how much we loved Trixie and brought her back. When really it was probably more informed by the fact that the girls really felt that Pearl should not have been there. So Trixie's brought back, has her redemption moment, and her going home bolsters Pearl's storyline. Sort of like, oh, well, maybe Trixie did go home for a reason because Pearl's now in top 3. And it secures her as a more viable underdog player when you compare her to queens like Kennedy, Ginger, and Violet. This is all the TV stuff, right? And I could keep going on and on about characters like Latrice and LaLaurie. These queens who go home by some type of snub, come back, slay, and either win something or get a lot of devotion of an episode to them. Because it's all a fantasy. And television karma is obviously very different than real life karma. Bad things happen to good people all the time. And oftentimes, there is no justice in reality. Drag Race is a fantasy. It is not reality. That's fact. And in fantasy, good things happen to good people. There are so many TV examples that I could point to and say, this person was a genuinely kind person and got eliminated fairly, but the judges brought them back later. One great example I'm thinking about is The Mole on Netflix. There's this really fantastic contestant whose name I'm forgetting, who was a genuinely lovely dude, was a great presence on camera. He goes home very fairly because he lost the quiz and is literally brought back the next week because everyone felt that he deserved to. Again, TV is a fantasy, and I think that Carrie is going to get that fantasy karma come to life. I think most of you regular viewers understood and picked up what I was putting down, but there were a handful of weird comments about how karma's not real and XYZ. I'm not super interested in discourse because I already know where that's gonna go. So explaining it here with my own mouth and not trying to type it out where I know someone's not gonna read, they're just gonna try and reinforce their own values is a better option for me. And that's that on that. This week's challenge is a rusical. But was it really a rusical? It was 2 separate girl groups disguised as a rusical with one group choreo segment and a couple of dialogue moments. The plot of this episode was really transparent from start to finish, in my opinion. It was Jorgeous' week to secure a spot in the second round and to separate herself from the Mistress drama. The editors tried really hard to make sure that we as the audience understood that Mistress was spearheading the operation and that Jorgeous and Lydia were sort of just along for the ride. The camera focuses on Jorgeous kind of separated from Mistress. It shows Mistress having confessionals about this plan that she's got. It talks a lot about how Mistress was the one that planned to try and cuck Nicole, and make sure that we understand Jorgeous is not the villain here. I am of sound mind and of pure opinion that Jorgeous is just as culpable in what happened last week and this week as Mistress was. But the camera and the edit doesn't want us to think that, likely because they want to secure Jorgeous as an endgame player. She's probably going to win a lot of those lip syncs, even if she does bad in whatever 2 challenges are coming up, and she probably will. This was also a really huge moment for Lydia, who I think genuinely of everyone in this room absolutely competitively deserved her finale spot because she did well in all 3 challenges. Lydia at the top of this episode gets a lot of confessional flack for not supporting Tina in this point trade-off from the MBQ. I just want to recall mathematically, even though I'm not good at this, there are 5 queens that you can give your points to and only 1 point to give that to per queen. Mathematically, 4 people are going to be upset with you if you don't give them your point. The lingering edit about this, I kind of clocked right away that Tina was being set up to support Lydia's trajectory going forward. Tina was the stooge to Lydia's success. This season, in my opinion, is way too small to consider archetypes, but I'm already kind of pinning Tina as being a Jan archetype. Jans are oftentimes used as a story propeller for someone else's trajectory either into the finale or into a higher placement. And there are a lot of things that make someone a Jan, and I would highly recommend going and watching that video that's on this channel. Just type in Jan in the search bar, you'll find it. But let's dive into that really quick. Week 1, the pink team is introduced and Tina and Lydia immediately start forming a bond. Tina starts to tease around this idea that she and Lydia could form an alliance, only for the two of them to be the top two. Lydia wins the lip sync, and Tina's kind of established as the second fiddle to Lydia, because she's a good player, but maybe not as good as Lydia. Week 2, Lydia and Tina are casually roped into the Mistress and George's drama, specifically in Untucked, trying to get them to also sabotage Carrie and Nicole. Which then bleeds into week 3, where Tina is coming off as annoyed and sabotaged by someone that she thought she was in a quasi-alliance with. And she's coming across paranoid that she can trust not only Lydia, but nobody else in the room. And a big part of the Jan storyline, if you look at Violin Jan Thorgy, she was getting really paranoid about being sabotaged in the competition. And ultimately, that was being used as a story propeller for Chi-Chi. In All-Stars 6, Jan is getting paranoid about her placement and standing with all the girls because she chose to eliminate Akira over Yara. Jan's stumble in that moment is used as the story propeller for Akira, and Jans are often used in that way. All that to say, I think that Tina was being used in the same way. Because I think realistically, Tina could have been in the top 2 with Lydia. She had a really great performance in the challenge, and she had a really great showing on the runway, and it would have been a little bow end to their story. But I think they really needed to secure Georges in that top 2, just in case anything happened where maybe Carrie beat out Georges. Another one who got a really good story this week was Nicole, finally coming out of her shell. These old school queens do not play around when they're slighted, and it bums me out that it took 3 weeks for Nicole to finally decide to be competitive. Her yawning during Mistress's segment, trying to get in her head, was peak old school shade, and clearly worked. What I found most interesting about that edit was focusing entirely on how Nicole was feeling about getting in Mistress's head, without actually showing how Mistress was feeling about that. But Mistress did genuinely seem flustered by it. When she did that slow turn at Nicole, you could see the gears spinning, making her wonder if she was actually doing bad or if Nicole was just being shady. I think fans think of Mistress as this big, mean dragon who bullies everybody in the workroom, but it's all really just a front for the camera. Because if you watch Mistress in interviews, if you watch Mistress at Roscoe's, she's a really sweet girl. She's shady and cutting, but Mistress also is someone who will stand up for people when tea is being spilled about them that maybe isn't supposed to be spilled. I think Mistress is not the kindest on Drag Race, but I think she sort of looks at it like, we're on TV, the gloves are off, we're all consenting adults here. And Mistress doesn't bring anything to the competition that is from the outside. If we wanted to talk about a real, true, honest bully, we would talk about the India Derek stuff more, or the Gia and Farrah stuff more, where things that were happening on the outside of the competition, things that were not consented to be brought onto TV, were aired out in front of the audience. Mistress confines her drama to what is happening in that room. If she was a real bully, Mistress would be pulling stuff that was from all over the place. And the Tina wig thing was totally a meme. That was such a hee silly haha and had nothing to do with actual bullying. Mistress could be pulling in tea and shade and saying, well, I have receipts of you saying this and that at that club, but she doesn't do that on TV. Anyway, I think that in this challenge, they glazed over how she was actually feeling about being shaded by Nicole. And I think it was enough to throw her off in the challenge. Because I don't think she was ever gonna win anyway, but I think it diminished her energy a bit. And I think it proved that she's not just this mean dragon, she has weaknesses. And it showed. I want to backtrack really quickly and talk about Tina's upset with Lydia. She made a comment that this is a tournament of champions, and that it's not about alliances, or it shouldn't be. The reality is that All Stars in particular is a social game. And Drag Race Mainline has been trying to incorporate that into its mix with the Rada Queen by immediately starting off the competition with them understanding you are all competing against each other socially to get to the end. It is not just about what the cameras and Rue and the judges think, it is also about what each other think. You have a little bit of agency in this game. Not much, you have a little bit. And with the MVQs, it's disguised as who do you think is the most valuable queen, but value is all subjective. That is all social currency, really. And Mistress knows how to play that game very well. She attached her cart to the horses she knew was going to reach the end, because she likely knew that Carrie and Nicole and Tina were not going to be the ones to make it to the end. And that was kind of a microcosm of the thing that I was talking about earlier that happens on a macro level with the fans. Nicole and Tina wanted Carrie to go to the finale, not because they loved her so much, and I'm sure that they do love her, but it was because they didn't want Mistress to go. Drag Race television first, villain story first. We oftentimes want someone to win, not because we love them so much, but because we want someone else to not win. And so we got to see them play the cards that they had available, only to not be able to do anything about it. And I wonder if Tina had maybe not given her point to Nicole and had given it to Carrie at the top of this episode, Carrie would have had more points than Mistress. That would have been a gag. That would have been a genuine competitive gag. And I think production would have been gagged. And I knew that 0.5 was gonna be used as a producer tool last week. I just wasn't sure who it would favor, Mistress or George's. So for the actual challenge itself, I don't have a ton to say about this rusical. Carrie's choice to sound like a 90s cartoon character while being dressed like Anna Nicole Smith was such a brilliant and kind of psychotic move, but I loved it. This was a bad week to have a bad runway for her and Nicole, because I think they easily could have been top two, especially the fact that Carrie stole the show and Nicole's presence in that challenge was, can you say, magnetic? I think they were easily the strongest in the challenge, maybe right next to Lydia. Both groups sounded pretty decent. I agreed with Michelle that Mistress looked a little restrained in her movements, but I couldn't tell if that was because of her costume or the choreo heaviness of that track. Lydia objectively dominated. She curb stomped that challenge. And overall, I found the challenge kind of whelming. I did also skip the RuPaul segment. Say what you will, I'm not always a fan of those and I usually just can't watch them. I also don't believe that these were filmed anywhere near the same time as each other, because I specifically remember Rue wearing that jumpsuit to something. Was that the Lollapalooza last season? What was that look? Because I remember her in that jumpsuit, and I'll remember probably right as soon as I wrap this. I should have looked and done research before I started filming, but that was probably filmed at that time. Let's talk about the looks this week, and I'm gonna kind of breeze through them because I wasn't super blown away by them. And I will be ranking them based on my personal preference. Remember that fashion is subjective and we're all gonna respond to things differently than each other will. The runway category is Wild Wild West. I'm not terribly inspired by this idea, because I mean, it could bleed into costumey really quick, and I don't have a problem with that, but Drag Race doesn't always respond positively to costumes. And it's interesting to me that this group got the Little Shop of Horrors last week and then Wild Wild West this week, when I think Little Shop of Horrors would have been more interesting for group 1, and I think honestly Wild Wild West would have been more interesting for purple group. That's just me. Nicole comes out first. She certainly did come out first. Have you ever seen those pink bodysuit morph suits that you can get on Amazon for like $18 overnight Prime delivery? That was this, but with a couple rhinestones attached. Again, this was a bad week to have a bad runway because Nicole genuinely could have won this one. So Nicole's outfit was going for a carnival theme, and I don't know why your brain would go there for Wild Wild West. Maybe there was some traveling carnival that came through that was Wild West themed that she saw and was like, oh my god, the pink pony. I don't know. The boots are really puss, and I love that. But overall, the presentation was just not there for me. I get that horses are in the Wild West. It needed to be pumped up a little bit. It's all just a little flat, especially in the way that this saddle just hangs off of the side like a limp scrotum. I put this diva at number 6, but I mean, she's fierce and she made her mark this season, I guess. Next out, we have Tina Burner doing a Wonder Woman inspiration by way of the Wild Wild West. And oh my god, my mouth dropped. I loved her confidence in this look, and you can tell that she was feeling it. This group has really relied on stars, I've noticed. We've gotten stars just about every single week, I think. And I actually like the incorporation of these stars more than I liked them in a lot of the other looks throughout this bracket. I love the shape of this corset, and I like the way that the ropes have been used to create style lines, especially on the breasts as well as on the neckline. It's really visually interesting to me. This is a different silhouette for Tina, very new for Lana. And I love that the boots have been custom made in the same way that the corset was. This was really good and definitely gave the challenge without being like, a cowboy. And I like that she brought it into kind of modernity by tacking on the extra filter of Wonder Woman, because it's not too overtly, that's Wonder Woman. But you can see the inspo there, and I like it. It's a cool silhouette, it's a great shape. I liked her performance on the runway, and I love the way that this entire garment has been constructed. Very good job for Tina, and a good bow end to finish off her time on Drag Race. I think Tina should be really proud of what she did this season. She should be very proud of what she presented, and I hope that she walked away from this experience not feeling the worst, because I don't think that she was the worst. I think she did very solid each week. I put her at number 2. Next out, we have Carrie Colby. To me, this was very Beyonce coded. Her interpretation of this challenge was to be wet, and I don't understand why. I've watched a lot of spaghetti westerns in my time. I grew up in a town that was very Wild Westy. There were literally bars themed after saloons in my hometown. There were people that were out in the middle of the desert that lived in like Wild West shacks. And we used to go to this old gold mining town all the time called Calico. I grew up with a lot of this inspiration in my life, and I don't quite understand why she chose being wet. Was it because she was in a gunfight and then fell into the well? Was she so drunk that at the end of the day they had to toss the water on her to wake her up and send her home or something? I don't quite understand the interpretation. Was it a pretty garment? Absolutely. But so far every week, I feel like Carrie has looked at the assignment and said, so I see it, what if I don't do that though? And I don't know if this is a Drag Race effect. Take a challenge, go so outside of the box that it becomes different than what the judges are expecting and they live for it and grasp onto it, or if this is just a genuine disconnection from the assignment. Even the hat was not very Wild West to me. It looks like a rain cloud, and I don't understand why you would do that for the Wild West. It was number 5 for me. Next out is Mistress Isabella. Yeah, I don't get this one either. There are fires in the Wild West that show up a lot, where the saloon catches on fire because the bad guy is trying to catch the good guy. They burn down the school or the church or whatever to assert dominance. But this wasn't even coming across in that manner. It was just coming across like, welcome to Diners, Dive-Ins, and Drives. I was confused what this had to do with the prompt. I love the hat. I think the hat construction is really cool. But beyond that, I don't get it. Next out is Lydia Collins in my absolute favorite look of the entire evening. The denim and the cow print is so freaking cool. I love the way that she's constructed these chaps. It is such an interesting shape and silhouette. And I think that Lydia is someone who clearly knows what she's doing with a sewing machine, but doesn't always understand shape and volume. This is probably one of the most streamlined looks that I've seen of Lydia that incorporates a lot, but makes it sleek in the same way that her little black and white number was that she cut up in season 17 was. This was spectacular work. I love the incorporation of the lassoing, even if it was really clunky and badly choreographed. Because at a certain point, she's kind of just dangling it around like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And then the makeup is really freaking cool, man. I am a skosh confused about the shoes. Silver glitter shoes with gold rope all the way up and down the jumpsuit. I don't have a problem with mixing silver and gold together. It's just I didn't think the silver was as cohesive with the rest of the garment. I would have liked it better if it was a black shoe or a white shoe. But under the light, the way that Drag Race is so saturated, they almost looked like a lavender color. That's the only thing I think, like, come on, a silver shoe. But my God, this was the best look of the night. It is number 1. And then finally is Georges, who I really love that she went in a different route by choosing this saloon girl. It is such a fun interpretation of the challenge, but once again, we have more stars. I think the star earrings are my favorite part of this. The silhouette is very familiar for Georges. It's not like we've not seen this before. That mug is muggy. The colors are really nice, but it does remind me a little bit of, I think, Cheryl Hull in UK versus the World season 1. It's the same picture, but without the skirt. I hate that I have so much Drag Race in my head. I mean, I appreciate that she went in a different direction. I think that that is to be commended. I just don't know if it was like such a departure from when Jorgeous does that it was like, whoa. But I mean, it was better than 3 other looks on the runway in my opinion, so I put her at number 3. This week, the dossier said that Tina was not in the top 3, so Michelle had to construct this clunky critique that Tina got lost. And I think the real, honest, genuine critique is that Carrie stole the show of that first group. Tina stood out and did well and kept up, but ultimately, Carrie was the one who was drawing focus. And I understand that Michelle has to hammer in, you're not gonna win, and we need the audience to understand that. But also, I really wish that she would find a way to streamline her critiques in a way that actually makes sense, not that she's just grasping at straws. Because I think it would have been a valid critique to say, you were fantastic. Carrie ultimately was better than all of you in that group, and it was really hard to not pay attention to her. If Carrie wasn't stealing the show, maybe I would have paid more attention to you, but you needed to bump up your performance to match up with what she was doing, so I wanted to watch you instead. Jorgeous and Lydia are called as the top 2, and in my opinion, I think that Jorgeous was not the most flawless in the challenge, and I don't think she was the most flawless on the runway. But Nicole and Carrie bombed on the runway, and I don't think there was any way to justifiably give them the win when they didn't really match the brief at all. I think honestly, Tina could have been the winner of this challenge with Lydia again and tied off their storyline. But I don't think that Tina was on the vision board to go to the next round. And I think they may have worried if they do that, would they not have been able to secure Jorgeous and Mistress going forward? Drag Race is a television show before it is a competition. I judge things based off how I want them to be seen, not as if they actually are, while also recognizing that it's not a fair competition. Overall, I think it would have been maybe better storyline to wrap up the Tina stuff, and then maybe it would have given her her last flowers so that Lydia still looks like the better one of this duo that has been bubbling all season. Tina gets rewarded, but just barely doesn't make it because once again, our villains are scheming once again and are colluding. However, I think that narrative would have painted Jorgeous as another antagonizer villain. And this whole episode, as I mentioned, narratively, was trying to separate Jorgeous from Mistress. They had their moment at the beginning, and then after that, they tried to keep them very far apart, visually and edit-wise. Because I don't think they want us to think of Jorgeous as an instigator here. They want her to go into the finale with a clean record, and us just focusing on Mistress being messy. The lip sync song is Texas Hold'em by Beyonce. And I think of everyone in this group, Lydia was the one that could have beat Jorgeous at a lip sync. And I think she actually did. But maybe like by a hair. I enjoyed Lydia's wig reveal. I thought it was clean. I thought it was funny. Jorgeous was so brave to reveal that her bodysuit skirt came off and revealed a bodysuit. And I think that Jorgeous delivered a very on-par performance for what Jorgeous does. I don't think either one of them were particularly groundbreaking in their interpretation of this performance. They both slid onto the ground in about the same way as each other. They both were moving in the same way as each other and dancing to the rhythm as each other. However, I found Lydia's ability to pull back some of those weird, crazy movements that she does all the time really refreshing. Whereas Jorgeous still wasn't doing very much with her face, even if her body was doing all the talking. I think ultimately this is down to a matter of taste, and the judges prefer Small Fierce Delicious to Lydia. And so Jorgeous and Lydia move on to the next round, and by way of mathematics and no way to actually beat her, Mistress also moves on to round 2. This is gonna cause a scene on Twitter, I already can tell, and I already feel that the comment section is going to be lit up with Mistress hate. I wanna be so clear, I don't live for what Mistress is doing. I think it's a little immature, but I also recognize that this is television and she's hamming up her character for TV. I don't love those characters on Drag Race, but I understand why they're there and what they do narratively. Truly, I'm honestly ready for Purple Group, and I have been for a while. I'm excited for the Bettys, I'm excited for Denali. I'm excited that we have another design challenge, and it makes me wish that Group 1 also had a design challenge because both 2 and 3 got them. But oh well. What did you think about this episode? If you have not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can catch more of my opinions, and if you would like to support the channel, channel in a different way and watch some of my posted videos a few days earlier, such as the Jan video that I talked about earlier, or the season 11 video that I just posted last week, you can check that out by joining the Extravaganza Extra membership that is right down by that subscribe button. And check out my Drag Race podcast if you're interested in some classic seasons. We are just about to start talking about Drag Race France Season 1. Don't be mad at me when you listen to that podcast, because I had a lot of feelings. And I'm truly so excited for Purple Group. I will see y'all then. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.